We're Batman at 89.
Hello, and welcome back to another week of Bat Minute 89, the podcast where we analyze, scrutinize, and lead every minute of Tim Burton's Batman to its chair, 1 minute at a time. I am one of the hosts, Niall McGowan.
I am another one of the hosts, John Parker, and I loved the way you tried to weave that in and failed spectacularly.
What? That was a roaring success, John. Everyone loved it. Everyone loved it, right? This week, we're once again joined by another of the many Movies by Minute masters who are out there. A one-time host of the Spinal Tap Minute, which is wrapped up, and the upcoming Cabin in the Woods Minute, Heidi Bennett.
Hey, I'm right here. Let's make them bounce.
Oh, that is the most enthusiastic we've had. Yeah. We're going to use that every episode now.
It's the website's Cabin Cast. Is it called Cabin in the Woods Minute, or is that?
Well, that's the thing. You know, the Cabin in the Woods is a bit of a long phrase. Yeah. So you will find us at cabinminutecast.com and everything's cabin minute cast, just to make it a little shorter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today on Bat Minute, we're talking about minute 58 of Tim Burton's Batman. Minute 58 begins with the Joker announcing to Alicia, "Daddy's gonna make some art, darling," in the creepiest way possible. And it ends 1 minute later with Vicky Vale sitting at a table.
Well, one could say Vicky waiting.
Oh, you could. Oh, damn it, I should have thought of that. But
You obviously weren't thinking in the mindset of Prince, which is something I do on a regular basis. I try and base my life around what Prince would do.
So we'll just jump right in here anyway, because we begin with the continuation of the scene that was set up last week with Alicia's coming, ask Jack, where's he going? And the Joker turns around, and we see, his face half caked in makeup. And he announces, as I said, "Daddy's gonna make some art, darling." And then he gets a little giggle, and he's just creepy. He's a creepy guy, this fella.
I hate it when, like, grown men get called daddy by their partners on TV and in film. Is this a thing? Because I find it very disturbing. And I know he's saying it about himself.
Yeah.
The implication seems to be that this is a thing they have.
Is it a thing they have, or is it a thing that he's imposed on her now?
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, he seems to mostly just impose things on her. Like, I even look at this mask and wonder, like, did he impose this creepy kind of... it looks like that Rejuvenique mask, sort of, or like a China doll sort of weird mask. And I was kind of thinking, like, is this part of her beauty routine, or is this something that he put up, that Daddy put on her? Daddy put up on.
Well, we do find out soon.
Yeah,
we won't spoiler it, but there is a plot point with it.
Cool.
And I always forget how awesome that mask looks. I mean, obviously not for the person wearing it. Yeah. That's horrible. But, as a viewer, it's really cool. And I forget, though, about the plot point with it. You think it would be like a more iconic look.
Yeah.
This and they'd use it in other Batman things, like there'd be a comic book with it in and stuff like that, because it's creepy.
Yeah.
It is.
It's kind of like it's giving, and not to get into spoilers with exactly what's going on with Alicia, but it does lend like a real more sadistic streak to this version of the Joker. Because you see, like, megalomaniac, killing hundreds and thousands of people. But you don't get, like, this is much more intimate and immediate of, like, oh, this guy's a sicko. Like, this is really twisted what he's doing. And it's just kind of makes him even more dangerous than just like, oh, he's killing loads of people. It's more like, oh, this guy's nuts. Like, he is a sick, twisted individual. But I will say, though, because as you alluded to there, Heidi, the next shot is Alicia kind of standing with this mask. This is the first time we saw it in the reflection in the mirror, but this is the first time we've been introduced to it properly. And she's kind of standing with her head half tilted. I'm wondering, is that, like, does it have to be that way? Like, why is she walking around in this weird, so her head's cocked to the side business? I'm not too sure what's going on there.
I think she's a bit out of her head. She sounds like she's a bit drugged or something.
Yeah, I'm assuming he must have had it. Maybe he's keeping her in like a drugged stupor, and that's why she's so kind of compliant with everything. And although at the same time, it's hard to tell because it's like it could just be Jerry Hall's acting. You can't really tell. Like, this could be her like full on Shakespeare mode, like trying to like pull it out to the rafters, and the people in the back are trying to get this performance.
I won't insult her too much. I'm sure I'd do much worse if I was put in a major motion picture.
But I will say, though, that I'm under the impression, it's appropriate to bring up while you're here, Heidi, because this is you've got a podcast coming up analyzing a film that does various references to different horror films throughout its entire run. And I always took this mask to be a reference to Eyes Without a Face, which is like an excellent horror, like a French horror film from the 60s.
Yes. I don't think I've ever seen that. It's definitely evocative of horror films. As soon as you see it, just the way it's lit, the way her head is tilted. But then it also reminded me, like I mentioned, of that creepy kind of 80s, 90s Rejuvenique mask. Yeah. The one where you're putting it on your face and it's supposed to be making it look rejuvenated and youthful. It looks the opposite of that.
It's almost kind of a bit like Patrick Bateman-esque as well, because you get him in his beauty masks. Yeah. And then, of course, Patrick Bateman, played by Christian Bale, will go on to play Batman later on. So,
connection yet again.
Yeah. But no, Eyes Without a Face, it really strikes me, because that's a film that seems like that would be up Tim Burton's alley, because it's all about, like, it is a very warped little weird horror movie. It was directed in the 1960s. Georges Franju. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
You're probably not, let's be honest.
Yes, almost.
It was a good effort.
But yeah, it's about a scientist who keeps abducting women and stealing their faces, basically.
Oh my God.
It turns out that he's actually got I believe it's his daughter, if my memory serves correctly, it's his daughter, that she was in a horrible car wreck and now her face is completely destroyed. So he keeps giving her the new faces. And then the surgery never takes properly, so her face will end up falling off eventually. But for the majority of the film, she goes around wearing a mask, like we see Alicia in here, and it's really creepy. So, and it just like everything about it seems like, I can imagine Tim Burton would love that. Like that's as a guy who loves his old horror movies, that would be right up his alley, I think. But I don't know if he's ever gone on the record and said, that's what that's from. But
no, he certainly didn't in any of the research materials I've been through. He doesn't really reference it to me.
Yeah, but I wonder as well, though, like, subtextually, because I guess you could interpret Eyes Without a Face as like, well, it's a comment on the vanity of society, that this man is prepared to kill young women just to make sure that his daughter looks beautiful, because beauty matters so much, and blah, 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 blah. And then this, the Joker's almost kind of making a mockery of modern day vanity, in that, like, even though he is a preening fella himself, as we saw in this scene alone, is he trying to make some kind of comment on, like, look at all these idiots, and like, now they can't get their hairspray or their deodorant, and now they all look ugly.
Yeah, definitely.
Was there some kind of intertextual connection there? But I can't tell. I'm not entirely sure. So.
Yeah, that kind of makes me think of John Waters' Female Trouble, too, where they play around with the idea of beauty to the degree where the main character becomes physically deformed and turns that into what is, challenges everyone to say, this is beauty.
Yeah, that would work very much in with the Joker's whole thing, is because he's making people essentially drugging them to make them look like him. And he talks later on about like the new standards of beauty and all this kind of stuff. And
well, believe it or not, I have not seen that movie. I know the movie, but I haven't watched it.
Female Trouble?
Yeah.
So I'll watch Eyes Without a Face if you watch Female Trouble. Is amazing.
It's a deal.
Oh my God, there's so much to enjoy with that. Yeah. It's definitely an iconic early John Waters film for sure.
From one sort of eye-catching minutes of the close-up of a stone, I'm not too sure what the mask is made of. Is it like plastic or
It looks porcelain or something, like a doll, as Heidi said, but is it?
Because I was trying to do a segue there, like, well, from one vaguely statuesque looking, a statuesque performance, if you want to call it that. We get the cut here to the Flugelheim Museum, and then just like the statue that we briefly saw at the beginning of John T. Gotham, just like staring into our soul now. It's just
yeah, he's really front and left of center.
And notice as well, if you look at him, because it's like, oh, he's looking okay. These marks on him, I'm not too sure if it's like, it kind of looks like it could be, if things been chipped off the stone. Is this bird poo? Or is it insects? Like, what's going on with this guy, you know?
I'm going to say the middle one.
Yeah, I assumed it was birds. Because, come on, that's all they do. That's their entire existence.
I'm sure they think that statues are erected just for that purpose, you know, just for them.
Yeah, it's like a lightning rod. It draws the bird poo in that direction.
But I just wonder, though, on set as well, the fact that someone's clearly made this statue. And as we know, like in the other iterations of the script, there was a whole big thing with a statue that was going to be a thing with the Lady of Gotham statue, and then it was changed to the John T. Gotham statue, which they were renewing. And there's a whole cut sequence that at least made the statue for it, of where the Joker replaces it with a statue of him. And I wonder, though, if like they put all the effort into making this one, and then someone was like, it's in the movie, though, isn't it? Like, I didn't spend weeks making this damn thing for nothing to happen.
As anyone who works on movies well knows, most of what you do ends up getting tossed into the trash. Nothing gets used. It's all discarded and then whittled down.
But this guy's like, no, I'm going to bat. Like, give me one shot. One shot. And even like there was no plans for this. This was like a second unit thing. And Tim Burton wasn't even there to do this shot. And then the guy was like, just wheel the statue out in front of the camera. It's like, don't get it in the middle of the frame, but just get it like it's almost there, you know?
Well, I do love the whole look of this shot as well, because I thought it had a kind of a very harsh... it's a bit harsh for an art gallery / museum, but, okay. It's very harsh and almost Soviet, I thought it looked like, with the statue and the stone and the strange decor.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to say it looks... I think somebody references it as like a locomotive design. Like it looks like kind of like brutalist Art Deco on steroids. Like everything's bumped out to the extra steamy, creepy, dark, and intense. Definitely doesn't look like an inviting museum setting.
No.
Foreboding.
You're not going to be getting kids going there.
No.
I do have an exact quote from Anton Furst, who obviously designed this whole thing. And it said, on designing the Flugelheim, he said, all the buildings except the cathedral are dwarfed by the geometric savagery of the Flugelheim Museum, whose brutal exterior is more akin to a locomotive design than an art gallery like the Guggenheim. That's what you were talking about there,
There we
Heidi.
go.
That's the one.
So I probably read the same thing and then just... didn't quote the source, yeah.
Although apparently this is very specifically, because it said as well, Anton First talking about like the city design, and it's like, it's based on the works of architects Antonio Gaudi, Otto Wagner, Shaya Takamatsu, and Louis H. Sullivan. And in particular, the cathedral's based on Gaudi. That's why it's such a gaudy-looking set. And the Flugelheim was directly based on the Nishina Dental Clinic by Takamatsu. So, and I looked that up, and it's it looks like that. That's fair enough.
I would not want to get my teeth done in somewhere that looks like this.
No, that looks frightening.
Don't smash them out of your skull.
This is the kind of like the dentist is just leaning into the whole like, well, people don't like coming here. Fine. We'll just lean into the whole thing. You know what?
Hold still while I gas you. I like as well. It's really reminding us how busy this city is, because in previous scenes we've seen it's so busy, it's horrible. Like it adds to the whole atmosphere of it being a depressing kind of place, because you can hear all the cars, there's horns, there's people shouting, there's lots of chatter. Like even this late at night, you can't seem to get any peace.
Yeah. It's I wonder what time of day it is, because this is supposed to be in November, and in a big city, this could be like 5 p.m. Like you can't really tell what time it's supposed to be. But But yeah, again, we get, of course, a welcome revisit by our old friend Steam, which is
Yes.
seemingly omnipresent on the streets of Gotham. So.
And also omnipresent on the streets of Gotham seemed to be that one cab that's advertising Sanchez Mexican food. Saw them come up earlier, and they seem to be making the rounds, so that one cab's very busy.
They're a busy cab driver, yeah. They've got a lot of fares on. They're doing well.
It's probably like now he's on the outs, though, because the mayor's trying to pitch this whole hot dog and balloon stand. It's just like, now get that Mexican guy out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, what's the mayor got against other cuisines? He's very fixed on this one idea.
But I don't know, maybe it was one of those things. It's like, you know, the way that apparently Katy Perry was never allowed to watch the Smurfs as a child because her parents were like really ultra Christian. And apparently then she said she took like the role of Smurfette in the movies just out of spite. So it's like, this could be like the mayor's like, I never got to eat hot dogs when I was a kid, and my family abhorred balloons. So like, that's all I want. And it's like, we were talking about it last week. The city's going to hell. A guy's, poisoning the products, and all the mayor can talk about to the district attorney, the guy who's trying to prosecute major crimes and stuff, is about getting the parade on schedule. But then we cut now into the interior of the Flugelheim, and the thing is, you walk in, there's a guy that there's a fella you see, and there's one guy in a hat, and there's a fella behind him, and I was convinced for a second that he was reading the handbook for the recently deceased. Cause it looks so much like it, doesn't it? Look, it's the same color, and at the back, it looks like it.
Oh yeah,
it looks like that little illustration of the man and the woman and the little blue circle. And it's like, I don't know, it's Tim Burton. Is he the kind of, would he do a little cutesy reference like that to his own film?
Is it part of the Tim Burton cinematic universe? Everything has to be a cinematic universe these days, so let's link everything.
This guy's just like, he's got his own story. He's a ghost. It's just, he's haunting the Flugelheim for whatever reason. He had some of that terrible Mexican food, and then he died.
How big and heavy that book looked, like something that you're walking around referencing. I'm assuming it's got the artwork in it or something, but it's not a brochure. It's like a big, heavy book. Although he seems up to the task.
Looks like something he's brought from home, though. You're right. It doesn't look like a brochure or anything. You wouldn't get that at the museum, or would you? I wouldn't think. Maybe in the gift shop afterwards.
Yeah, it is strange.
You could get the interior as well. Like, it looks like the inside of a friggin' ship or something. There's just like huge portholes, and it just looks, again, very industrial and whatnot. You can imagine this down beneath deck. This is the kind of the vibe they're going for. But
well, I know some people find art galleries a bit like stuffy, shall we say? But I mean, this one especially seems completely soulless. Like that, you wouldn't want to spend your afternoon here. I wouldn't think. It looks miserable.
I did see someone was trying to make this whole thing like, the art gallery in itself is a critique of like yuppie culture, in that it's sort of big and pretentious, but they also have to have a restaurant there because no one just wants to go and look at art. They have to have some other reason to sit. I'm not too sure if that's what they were going for, but
I was going to question the restaurant, like why is it there? But then I thought, well, the one here in Liverpool has a cafe. That's kind of similar. It's not as posh, but you could get a sandwich.
Anywho, then we get the action-packed minute we have here. So it's Vicky walks in, she approaches M. Bison there, sitting with his cap and his red jacket on there. Gets redirected up the stairs. We get to see a little bit more of the Flugelheim, which we'll be seeing a lot of in the next 2 weeks. The end of this week and into the next. We got to see a few little bits of the little bits and bobs of the old artwork there. Things that I'm sure will remain safe throughout the entire film.
Oh, of course, nothing's going to happen to them. Certainly not within the next 2 minutes. And can I just ask a quick question? I know we'll hit more on these artworks, but these pieces of art look like they wouldn't be stored here. They'd be stored somewhere much more important.
Yeah.
Because there's a portrait of George Washington coming up in a second, and that looks like a very like a really old, proper, original work. Did they just knock these things out left and right or something back then? Like, here, have a portrait of George Washington. Everyone. I don't know.
I don't know, because there was one time I was volunteering in an art gallery, And I remember it was like late at night, and it was like an evening showing. I was up on the top floor, and they had original works by Damien Hirst was in there.
Yeah, but they're not old. These look even old. Like these. Are ancient.
But these were things like they had like the values on them were like in the tens of thousands. And I was just, and then at one point they're like, okay, can you just look after the place? And they just kind of, it was just me there, kind of holding the fort for like an hour. And I was absolutely terrified because it's like, what if someone comes in and just steals everything? I'm not going to stop them.
Or what if you got the urge to suddenly paint all over them in bright colours and things?
But there was an old man who came in there then with a cane. And I was eyeing him up really suspiciously as like, is this some sort of like the Prestige? Like this is like he's just pretending he has this cane, and what he's actually going to do is like roll up the artwork and stuff it in there, and then they'll mysteriously gone missing. And I was like, in my head, I was like, that's not what's happening. But I was also a bit like, hey, could like if I catch this guy in the act, I could be a hero,
Well, speaking of the Prestige, that's a perfect segue for me. So I said I had a little bit of stuff about this opening minute here of my fantastic week with you guys for Bat Minute 89. So excited to come hang out with you after you all came and visited us for Spinal Tap Minute. We had such a good time, and so
thank you.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. And so I was excited to sort of delve in. And the thing I noticed was, obviously these are all these like classical pieces that are very recognizable, right away. It's like, oh, there's the Blue Boy and there's George Washington, and et cetera, et cetera. And then I thought, oh, well, that one really stands out. The one as Vicky's just coming up to, find her table and, find Bruce, is that there's this one that's very creepy looking.
Yeah.
And I know,
oh, yeah.
I know later on, it will come up a little bit more, but right away I was like, oh, those almost look like bat wings back there on that dark painting.
Yeah.
So then I researched that painting a little bit more, and it's called Figure with Meat
Ooh.
by Francis Bacon.
Perfect.
So then I looked a little bit deeper, and then Christopher Nolan, there's a video I can share with you guys unless you already have it, but a video interview with Christopher Nolan saying that the artist Francis Bacon actually inspired the design for Heath Ledger's Joker makeup.
Everything's connected again.
Yeah.
Considering,
so,
but I think that's particularly good considering what does happen to that painting later is that it's saved by the Joker. So it's like
exactly.
Yeah, it's a good pull, that one actually.
Yeah. So I just thought, it stood out to me, and I thought, like I said, oh, this is, these look like bat wings, but they're actually two hanging carcasses, like of cow. And then I won't go into, because it's a bit long to read, but I do have something that's specifically about that painting and what inspired it, so I can pass that along in case you guys want to, look at that. But
yeah, send it along. We'll share it in the group.
Yeah. I thought it was just interesting because, as you mentioned later on, it's the one that the Joker says, oh, don't destroy this one. I kind of like it, or, however he puts it.
To be honest, I like it. I want it on the wall. And now I know there's this very strong connection to everything we're doing right now, right here. Now I want it even more.
But from like the visual masterpieces that we're talking about, I should mention as well, though, we do get a little bit of incidental music. I'm assuming it's diegetic music it's playing like in the museum itself. Mm-hmm. A lot of people might recognize this, but this is the Serenade number 13 in GK 525, second movement.
Jesus.
Or also known as Ein klein Nachtmusik by Mozart. And just, it's one of those pieces like you've heard this thousands and thousands of times in your life without even knowing what it is, because it's such a seminal piece of classic music, and it's always played in like background of just, oh, it's supposed to be fancy, put on that, or
That's me with all classical music. I probably know far more than I realize. And it comes on and I'm like, oh yeah, this one. I couldn't tell you what it is, but I've heard thousands of these damn things.
Well, you would have heard, because this is featured in a few different films. Notably, it pops up in Alien. It's in Alien at one point. It's in both Ace Ventura movies.
That's a strange one to use over both of them. That's a running theme.
There's Something About Mary. And it's also in Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. So,
what?
We're in good company here. It's Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, only worth watching to see potentially the worst Irish accent ever put on film ever.
Oh, yes.
With just like Drew Barrymore's hooked up with Justin Theroux. And I remember one bit of him coming out of she blows up his house or something. And he comes out and the flames are all behind him. He's like, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna make you scream. And I was just like, what in the hell was that?
I thought you sounded even more Irish now. What are you talking about?
Well, maybe it's like maybe I'm overselling. Like I can't do. I'm too naturally good at it. This
You're
guy
too
was
Irish.
just like, trust me, this guy was terrible. But yeah, so I did note that, composed by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart in 1787. But of all the films it's not in Amadeus. I was like, you think if it's going to be in any of them, it'll be in that one. But
Well, maybe without researching this, I could be way off. Maybe he wrote it after Amadeus' set. I've only watched Amadeus once. It's not his whole life, is it?
oh yeah, it's up right up from.
Oh, there you go. Then
You see him getting chucked in the pauper's grave at the end and stuff. So
I literally watched that movie one time in. Oh, geez, I must have been about 15. So yeah, about 16 years ago, I watched that.
Anyway, we get Vicky goes over to the Mater D. I always feel like I'm missaying that because it just makes it sound like me, Mater D. But it's like, I'm sure it's supposed to be like Mater D or something like.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've got in my notes, right? Mater D, and then in brackets, just call him waiter. He's just a glorified waiter, isn't he? Let's be honest.
There is a waiter as well, though. It's the thing. It's like, oh no, there's two. This is too much. Now there are two of them.
Well, I looked up the Mater D to see what else he was in, if anything. And his name is Phillip OBrien. So I don't know if he's a fellow Irishman there, Niall, for you. But he was in, you've guessed it, as always, The Bill. The very boring police program we keep talking about, because everyone is in The Bill. He was also in something called Women and Men, Stories of Seduction. No, but I found that very amusing because he's playing a character called Vicky's father.
Ooh.
Yeah. But he's not playing Vicky's father here, but he's maybe a father figure leading her,
I don't know.
through her day.
Maybe they have this is her dad, and it's just a very frayed relationship. It's just like he's just like I won't even acknowledge who this is.
They're not on speaking terms. Oh. And he's in a lot, but one further thing I particularly picked up on was that he is in the UK program Bread, which is a Liverpool show. So hey, shout out.
Yeah. I also did a little look into Phillip OBrien, but I found, like, shockingly, this guy, it's like, I only know this now from having to do research on all these little bit part actors, but like a couple of his credits were like, I've seen these things pop up before. And like this guy, he's in stuff with other bit players in this film, because he's in Loch Ness with Ted Danson.
Oh, yeah.
But we've also talked about Loch Ness already, because John Dare, the guy who played Ricorso, the mobster who gets the quill on his neck on the steps, he was in Loch Ness as well. And then not only that, you remember we were talking about GoldenEye, not the GoldenEye Pierce Brosnan, but the GoldenEye with Charles Dance, the Ian Fleming thing. He's also in that, which co-starred Steve Plytus, who was Dr. Davis. And then he's also in Who Framed Roger Rabbit with Edwin Crane, who was the guy who played Vitelli, who was the guy that the Joker electrocuted, the hand buzzer thing. So this guy's he's like the linchpin of like all the bit part players. This fella.
He's the mastermind behind all of these films.
I wouldn't be surprised though if like none of them knew that, and like maybe one of them might listen to this and be like, "Oh, that's weird. It's a pity he's dead now because we could have talked to him about it." But
oh
well, Phillip OBrien, you did a good job for leading Vicky Vale to a chair. That was deftly done there.
I bet filming that is actually harder than you think, though. The amount of ways you could mess up and look stupid and not natural doing that.
It could be like maybe this is why they brought in the Mozart music, because they're like, oh no, if you have this guy kept messing up his lines, and then they're just like, oh for God's sake, just play some music over the top of him or something. It's not a particularly, amazing minute here, because it's Vicky goes over to the chair and she sits down, and then we get the sort of transition.
Then
shot.
She's waiting.
Yeah, Vicky.
Vicky waiting. I've got to say it again.
Yeah.
Play some Prince. I'm pretty sure we'd get sued if we played some Prince now. Though.
Oh God, no! I wouldn't even dream. Wouldn't even dream of trying to play the guy. But because then we just get like we get the beginning of a transition shot to Vicky waiting again still. But that's like the end of the action for the film, for the minute, really, isn't it? So
it's the end of the action. But I just wanted to say I quite like her outfit here. It's interesting. Look, I haven't seen something quite like this. It's smart, but with a little quirky touch. But she's not trying to, be seductive to Bruce or anything. She's playing it cool.
Yeah. I do note as well that, Vicky doesn't seem to be affected by this cosmetic scare. She seems to be doing all right. That's
a good point.
Yeah, there's no mention to Kim Basinger of like, do you mind if we kind of make your hair look a bit dirty, or just maybe you just look a bit like you haven't done yourself up too much? And they're like, no, we will not be doing that kind of thing. So.
Well, she's definitely one of those women of the 80s who looked so beautiful and has her natural, kind of no makeup look is very, it still looks, natural and gorgeous. And she has that big 80s hair, but it doesn't really look like hair pieces. And that's one of the things I've noticed, going back and looking at films from, earlier on, is you get a lot more natural, like even the fingernails, right? She's got these shortcut, they're clean, they're clipped, but like these days, somebody playing her role, even as somebody who's been out in the field as a photographer, would probably still have kind of like fancier nails or something. That's kind of what I noticed. But I do love her outfit. And I don't know if you guys talked about it much. I don't have much to add, but just I did notice they had somebody who specifically just was her wardrobe person.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And you can definitely tell.
I assume that's someone she has on like her staff and brings with her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we brought it up because it is someone she'd worked with in several other films. Because I remember one of them was My Stepmother is an Alien. And that film is forever marked with me now because of and Heidi, I know that you've come across this as well.
How did this get made?
Yeah, the episode of that about My Stepmother is an Alien, and they tell you the origin at the end of where the idea for the film came from. And I won't spoil it here, but a plug for that podcast, because if you want to hear some crazy stuff, they keep hinting at it throughout the episode, and then by the end you're like, there's no way it's going to be that good. And then when he tells you where it came from, it is like, oh, that paid off. Like that was one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life. But that same was it Linda Hendrickson? I think
that was the name. That rings a bell.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
Yeah. I find like the actual costume designer sitting there like, no, it was me. But like,
well, write in if you were the costume designer. Come on the show as well.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Or maybe the thing will be like, oh, costume designer for Kim Basinger, but still, she's in the film loads, so she loads of stuff to do for the costume.
I have a question, because if I may have just missed listening to the episode, but when she stays the night, it appears, with Bruce, it appears they're both still fully dressed by the next morning.
Yeah.
Or did they just cuddle throughout the night, or is it? Are we supposed to believe that they made the bat beast with two backs?
Well, we were torn on this. I thought they didn't do anything. They just cuddled. But Niall, you thought otherwise, didn't you? As did our guest.
Yeah. The guest that day, Lauren, she was convinced oh, this must be some reason she's so perky. And it's like, well, he probably went down on her. That's what's happened there. So she was convinced. And then me and John had to have a whole conversation about, do we have to cut the word cunnilingus? Is that a swear word? Or we couldn't. And then we're like, well, I guess it's a term. It's a term like any other term. It's like oh, let's leave it in, see what happens.
Yeah, no one will complain.
The thing is, then if we bleeped it out, people in their heads would make it think it was something way worse, probably.
Right,
So.
right.
The only other thing I've got here is initially when I was looking at this drink, I was thinking to myself, is she drinking water? Well, you do when you're waiting for someone. You have a glass of water, but you don't want to start drinking before they're there. But when I checked, I was going through the original draft looking for something else, and the original draft specifies she's drinking a gin and tonic, which I thought made the size of the drink make more sense because I drink a lot of water. I'm not having a little glass. But it also says she's been waiting for 20 minutes.
Oh, right.
At this point, when you see her tapping her fingers, 20 minutes. Now, personally, if someone's later than 15 minutes and they haven't got in touch with me, screw them.
Yeah, but this is the 80s though, man. This is like,
well, yeah.
You didn't have the means to like constantly keep up with people to check whether they're coming, and like if they're more than 15 minutes late, it's like, well, they haven't even tried to call me, so it's like the hell with them. But back then though, it was a legitimate like, well, it's just like, what can you do?
Yeah. If he's stuck in traffic, it's not like he can really easily get in touch. Then again, I imagine Bruce is the kind of guy who's got a car phone.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Plus, if you're trying to get in touch with Batman, he's a very specific way to get in touch with him above everyone else. But
it seems to me that so far, we haven't even seen Bruce all that much in the movie yet, and that he seems a bit absent-minded. He's kind of being... his butler's just sort of following him around and always picking up after him and sort of reminding him of things all the time. So to me, it seems sort of on brand with how we've met him so far and seen how he's acted, that he could be 20 minutes late and kind of bumble and fumble in. And so, yeah, seems reasonable.
That's probably why she's not suspicious of anything, to be honest, because... Yeah, you could fully imagine this Bruce that we've met just forgetting that he's even got a date.
I think as well, she's just assuming this guy is such a dick because he's just like, I slept with him once and then he lied to me and then like to get me out of his house, and now apparently he's making dates that he's not even trying to keep. Like, what's?
Screw you, Bruce.
But this is all stuff though, because this leads directly into tomorrow's minute. So I guess we can...
Not tomorrow, Niall.
Wednesday. This will lead directly into Wednesday's minutes. But,
God damn it. So yes, that does it for minute 58 of Bat Minute 89. Before we go, Heidi, have you got anything you would like to promote? Obviously, we've mentioned some of your other work.
Yeah, so if you are interested in checking out Spinal Tap Minute, it's easy to just go to spinaltapminute.com. And as you all mentioned earlier in today's episode, that has wrapped up, so you can binge to your heart's content. And then just starting this fall, just October 2nd, we just started releasing episodes of Cabin Minute Cast, which is about the cabin in the woods, and we are on a similar schedule as you gentlemen. You led the way for me to say, hey, Molly, let's do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So my co-host Molly Balin and I are very thankful to you. She's the editor, so she's doubly thankful to you for that idea. Gives her a little more breathing room. So yeah, cabinminutecast.com for that.
Should mention it's the film Cabin in the Woods. It's not just Heidi and Molly talking about their cabin in the woods.
Right. Although we do talk about random cabins as well. That comes up. But yes, it's about the film, the comedy horror Whedonverse, silly, wonderful The Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, excellent. Yes, I can't wait to check that out. And Spinal Tap Minute is fantastic. So everybody make sure you listen to that. And also, make sure to get in touch with us. We're on Facebook at the Bat Minute 89 Listeners Society. We're also on Twitter at Bat Minute 89. We're on Instagram and Tumblr as well. Just look them up. And make sure to rate and review and subscribe on iTunes. And before we go, I'm going to give a shout out to Star Wars Minute, because we haven't done that for a while, the originators of this format. So thank you guys. And everybody, join us again on Wednesday, because we'll be back for minute 59 of Batman. Next time, crazy purple knockout gas. As Vicky reads a crazed, crayon-scribbled correspondence, will a faint-inducing fog prove fatal for her fellow feasters? Find out Wednesday. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.